used to think friendship was forever, but now, at 80, I see the truth. 90% of friendships are fake, and you know what? Cutting people off was the best damn decision I ever made. Let me explain. So, let me take you through what I've learned after 8 decades on this planet, and why walking away from fake friends might just be the best thing you ever do. Lesson 1. Most friendships are built on convenience, not loyalty. For most of my life, I believed that friendships were based on genuine connection, shared experiences, and loyalty. I thought the people around me cared for me as much as I cared for them. But as the years passed, I started to notice a pattern. Most friendships aren't built on loyalty. They're built on convenience. At first, I ignored the red flags. I assumed life just got busy, and that's why some friends didn't call or check in unless they needed something. But then, I started paying attention. The so-called friends who used to be around when things were good were nowhere to be found when I was struggling. They had no problem inviting me out when they needed company. But when I was going through hard times, my phone stayed silent. It hit me hardest when I got sick for the first time. I wasn't dying, but I needed help, someone to check in, maybe even run a simple errand for me. I reached out to a few friends, expecting at least one of them to offer some support. Instead, I got excuses. I wish I could, but I'm super busy. Let me get back to you. Hope you feel better. But no one actually showed up. That was the moment I realized that most of my friendships weren't real. They were just based on convenience. It wasn't just about sickness either. I saw the same pattern in other areas of life. People only reached out when they needed something, whether it was money, advice, or just someone to listen to their problems. But when the roles were reversed, they were suddenly too busy, too tired, or simply uninterested. I used to give people the benefit of the doubt. I used to make excuses for them. But at 80, I've learned the truth. A real friend isn't just there when it's convenient. A real friend shows up when it's inconvenient. A real friend doesn't just take, they give, they care when there's nothing to gain. And once you recognize this truth, you start seeing friendships differently. You stop chasing people who wouldn't chase you. You stop wasting energy on those who only keep you around when it suits them. You learn that sometimes walking away isn't a loss, it's a win. Lesson 2. People will keep you around just to feel better about themselves. For years, I believed that friendships were built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. But one painful truth I've come to realize is that some people don't actually want a friendship. They want an audience. They don't keep you around because they care about you. They keep you around because you serve a purpose in their story. I didn't see it at first. I thought I had real connections with people who valued me for who I was. But over time, I started noticing a pattern. These friends never truly listened when I spoke. Conversations always revolved around their problems, their achievements, their drama. If I tried to share something about my life, they'd quickly steer the conversation back to themselves, or brush off my struggles with a half-hearted "that sucks" before launching into their next story. The realization hit me hardest during a dinner with an old friend. We sat across from each other, and for nearly an hour, all I heard about was their life, their problems, their career, their relationships. I listened patiently, offering advice and support. But when I finally shared something personal, something I was struggling with, they glanced at their phone, nodded absent-mindedly, and muttered, "Oh man, that's crazy." Then, without missing a beat, they went right back to talking about themselves. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't a friend to them. I was a sounding board, a mirror reflecting their importance back at them. My presence validated them, made them feel significant. They didn't care about me as a person. They just needed someone to be there, nodding, listening, making them feel important. Once I recognized this, I started testing it. I stopped initiating contact. I waited to see if they'd reach out to me just to check in, not because they needed to vent, but because they genuinely cared. Almost none of them did, and that told me everything I needed to know. At 80, I've learned that real friendship is a two-way street. If someone only keeps you around to boost their ego, to feel heard but never to listen, they aren't your friend. They're just using you. And the best thing you can do, walk away, because your time and energy are too valuable to waste on people who only see you as a tool for their own self-importance. Lesson 3. The more you give, the more people take. For most of my life, I believed that kindness and generosity would be reciprocated. I thought if I showed up for people, they'd do the same for me. But the reality, the more you give, the more people take. And they rarely stop to ask if you have anything left to give. I used to be the friend who always said, yes, need a favor, I got you, need a ride, no problem, need money, don't worry about it. I believed that being there for others was the right thing to do, and for a while it felt good. I felt needed, valued, but over time I noticed something strange. The more I gave, the less people appreciated it. My kindness wasn't seen as generosity anymore. It was expected. One particular moment opened my eyes. A friend of mine had fallen on hard times, so I lent them money. Nothing I expected back, just enough to help them get through a rough patch. Months later, they were back on their feet, but they never mentioned the money, not even a thank you. Then, one day, they reached out again, not to return the favor, but to ask for more. That's when it hit me. They didn't see me as a friend. They saw me as a resource, and it wasn't just money. People would call when they needed emotional support, but the moment I needed someone to lean on, my phone went silent. If I ever said I was too busy, I'd get guilt-tripped. But you've always helped before. They weren't grateful for what I did. They just expected it. At some point I realized, people will take as much as you let them. If you keep giving without setting boundaries, they won't stop. They won't suddenly appreciate you more. They won't suddenly start giving back. They'll just keep taking. Now, at 80, I live by a simple rule. Give, but don't be a doormat. Help those who truly appreciate it, not those who only see you as a convenience. And most importantly, never give so much of yourself that you have nothing left, because if you don't set limits, no one else will. Lesson 4. Time doesn't equal loyalty. For most of my life, I believed that long friendships were strong friendships. I thought that if someone had been in my life for decades, they were loyal to me. But as I got older, I realized something harsh. Time doesn't guarantee loyalty. Just because someone has been around for years doesn't mean they'll stand by you when it really counts. I had a friend, someone I had known for over 40 years. We had been through everything together: weddings, funerals, job losses, celebrations. I thought of him as family. But one day, I needed him. I was going through one of the hardest times in my life, and I reached out, expecting that after all these years, he'd be there for me. Instead, I got excuses. I've just been busy, man. I'll call you later. Later never came. That's when I realized our friendship wasn't built on loyalty. It was built on habit. We had known each other for so long that we just assumed we were close. But the truth was, when I needed real support, time meant nothing. It was about effort, and he wasn't willing to make it. I started looking at my other long-term friendships, and the pattern was clear. Some people had been around for decades, but they had never truly shown up when it mattered. Meanwhile, I had met newer people who had proven to be more loyal in just a few months than others had in years. That's when I learned one of life's most valuable lessons. Loyalty isn't measured in time, it's measured in actions. It doesn't matter if you've known someone for 5 years or 50. What matters is whether they show up when it counts. Do they stand by you in your darkest moments? Do they defend you when you're not in the room? Do they value the friendship as much as you do? If the answer is no, then time means nothing. At 80, I no longer keep people in my life just because of history. I keep them because of loyalty, effort, and genuine care. If someone has been in your life for years but never truly been there for you, ask yourself, are they really a friend, or are they just a familiar face from your past? Lesson 5. People will use you for what you can offer. It took me 80 years to fully understand this. Most people don't care about you. They care about what you can do for them, whether it's money, connections, emotional support, or even just attention. Many so-called friends are only around because you serve a purpose in their lives, and the moment you stop being useful, they disappear. I used to believe in giving without expecting anything in return. I thought, if I helped people, they'd appreciate it, and our bond would grow stronger. But what I didn't realize was that some people don't see kindness as a gift. They see it as an opportunity. They take what they need and move on when you have nothing left to offer. One example stands out clearly. I had a friend who always came to me for advice. Every time he had a problem, work stress, relationship issues, financial struggles, I was the first person he called. I listened. I supported him. I even helped him find job opportunities when he was struggling. But one day, I needed help. I reached out, hoping for the same support I had given him for years. His response, "Man, I'm dealing with my own stuff right now. I can't get involved in that." That was the moment I saw it clearly. He wasn't my friend. He was just using me as a therapist, a mentor, a problem solver. Our friendship wasn't mutual. It was one-sided. The moment I needed something, he was gone. And this pattern wasn't just in friendships. I saw it in family, in colleagues and acquaintances. People who were warm and friendly when they needed something, but distant and uninterested when they didn't. It was a hard truth to accept, but once I did, my life changed for the better. Now, I pay attention. I ask myself, would this person still be around if I had nothing to offer? If the answer is no, then they don't deserve my time, my energy, or my kindness. At 80, I no longer allow myself to be a resource for people who wouldn't lift a finger for me. I surround myself with those who appreciate me, not just what I can do for them. And if that means having fewer people in my life, so be it. I'd rather be alone than be someone's convenience. Lesson 6. Solitude is better than fake company. For most of my life, I feared being alone. I thought that having people around, even the wrong ones, was better than having no one. But the truth is, nothing is lonelier than being surrounded by people who don't truly care about you. It took me 80 years to realize that solitude isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. I used to keep friendships alive just because I didn't want to feel isolated. Even when I knew certain people were toxic, I still kept them around. I convinced myself that having someone to talk to, even if they weren't good for me, was better than silence. But over time, I started noticing how drained I felt after spending time with these people. Fake friends exhaust you. They make you feel unheard, unimportant, and invisible. You could be in a crowded room, surrounded by familiar faces, and still feel completely alone, because deep down, you know these people wouldn't be there if you had nothing left to offer. The moment I started cutting off these fake friendships, something incredible happened. I felt lighter. I stopped feeling obligated to answer calls that I knew would drain me. I stopped wasting energy on conversations that went nowhere. And in the silence I found peace. At first it was uncomfortable. I had spent decades filling my life with people, and suddenly there was space, empty space that I didn't know what to do with. But as time passed, I started enjoying my own company. I read more. I spent time doing things I actually loved. I reflected on my life without outside noise influencing me. And most importantly, I learned to be content with who I was without needing validation from anyone else. People think being alone means being lonely, but I've been in a room full of friends and felt lonelier than I ever did in solitude. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness comes from being surrounded by the wrong people. Being alone, by choice, is freedom. At 80, I no longer fear solitude. I welcome it. I'd rather have peace than fake friendships. I'd rather be alone than be with people who make me feel invisible. And if you ever find yourself holding on to people just because you're afraid of being alone, ask yourself, is their presence really making your life better? If the answer is no, it's time to let go. Lesson 7. The right people will stay, no matter what. One of the biggest fears people have is losing friends. We hold on to relationships, even bad ones, because we're scared of being alone. But here's what I've learned at 80. The right people will stay in your life, no matter what. And the ones who leave, they were never meant to stay. For years I bent over backward, trying to keep people in my life. I tolerated bad behavior, made excuses for people, and even changed parts of myself just to keep certain friendships alive. But despite all my efforts, many of those friendships still faded. No matter how much I gave, It was never enough to make them stay. And then I realized it wasn't about me. It was about them. People who truly value you don't walk away just because life gets difficult. They don't disappear when you start setting boundaries. They don't leave just because you stop being useful to them. Real friends, the ones who genuinely care, will stick around through all of it, the good, the bad, and the uncomfortable. I remember one particular friendship that proved this to me. I had a friend I had known for decades, and when I finally started putting myself first, I expected him to pull away like so many others had. But instead, he supported me. He understood why I needed to change, and he stayed. He didn't just tolerate me, he respected me. On the other hand, I had friends who left the moment I stopped saying yes to everything they wanted. At first it hurt, but then I realized if my friendship was only valuable to them when I was bending over backward, it wasn't real friendship to begin with. The truth is, you don't have to chase the right people. You don't have to beg them to stay. If someone truly cares about you, they will make the effort. They will show up. They will accept you as you are. And if they don't, let them go. At 80, I've learned that the people who are meant to be in your life will stay, no matter how much time passes, no matter how much you change. And once you stop trying to keep the wrong people around, you make space for the right ones. Lesson 8. Real friends are rare, and that's okay. When I was younger, I thought the more friends I had, the better my life would be. I wanted a large circle, to always be surrounded by people, to never feel alone. But after 80 years, I've learned the truth. Real friends are rare, and that's not a bad thing. For years, I wasted time trying to maintain friendships that weren't built on anything real. I convinced myself that if someone had been in my life for a long time, they must be a true friend. But time means nothing without loyalty, respect, and genuine care. The truth is, most people you meet in life are temporary. They come and go. Some are there for a phase, some for a lesson, and only a select few will stay for the long haul. Once I understood this, my perspective changed. Instead of chasing quantity, I started valuing quality. I used to be the type of person who always reached out first, who always made the plans, who always checked in. But one day, I stopped. I decided to see who would put in the effort. If I didn't, the result, almost everyone faded away. But you know what? I was grateful, because the ones who stayed, they were the ones worth keeping. Real friendship isn't about how often you talk or how many memories you've shared. It's about who is there when life gets tough. It's about who shows up, who listens, who cares, without any personal gain. These people are rare, and that's exactly why they're so valuable. Now, I no longer feel the need to surround myself with a big crowd. I don't measure my worth by the number of people at my birthday party or the amount of messages in my inbox. Instead, I focus on the ones who have proven their loyalty time and time again. At 80, I've learned that you don't need 100 friends. You just need a few who are real. And once you find them, you don't have to force the relationship. It just works. So, if you've ever felt disappointed by losing people, don't be. It's just life, filtering out the ones who were never meant to stay. Lesson 9. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. One of the biggest mistakes I made in life was giving too many second chances. I ignored red flags, made excuses for people, and convinced myself that they would change. But after 80 years, I've learned the hard truth. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. People don't change unless they truly want to, and most of the time they don't. If someone betrays your trust once, they'll do it again. If someone disrespects you once, they'll keep doing it. The problem isn't them. It's that we refuse to see the truth because we want to believe they'll be different. I had a friend who constantly let me down. He would make plans and cancel last minute. He'd promise to help with something and never follow through. At first, I made excuses. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe he forgot. But after years of the same behavior, I realized something. He wasn't too busy. He just didn't care enough. It's not just about friendships either. I've seen people ignore warning signs in relationships, in business, even in family dynamics. They think, maybe this time will be different. Maybe they didn't mean it. But the truth is, actions speak louder than words. If someone consistently lies, manipulates, or disrespects you, that is who they are, and hoping they'll change won't make it happen. One of the most freeing decisions I ever made was accepting people as they are, instead of waiting for them to become better. Once I stopped making excuses, I saw people clearly. I no longer felt disappointed when they repeated the same behaviors. I had already accepted that this is who they were, and with that acceptance came a choice. Do I want to keep them in my life, knowing this is who they will always be? At 80, I no longer waste time trying to fix people. I don't wait for them to grow, to mature, or to suddenly start treating me right. If someone shows me they are selfish, dishonest, or unreliable, I believe them, and I walk away. Because life is too short to keep hoping that the wrong people will turn into the right ones. Lesson 10. Cutting people off isn't mean, it's necessary. For most of my life, I thought cutting people off was a harsh thing to do. I believed in forgiveness, second chances, and keeping the peace. I told myself that if I walked away from certain friendships I was being cold or selfish. But after 80 years, I see the truth. Cutting people off isn't mean, it's necessary. The reality is, not everyone deserves a place in your life. Some people are draining, some are toxic, some are simply not meant to stay forever. But we hold on to them out of guilt, out of habit, or because we fear being alone. And in doing so, we allow them to keep taking from us, even when they add nothing in return. I used to tolerate so much from people. Disrespect, broken promises, one-sided friendships, because I didn't want to be seen as the bad guy. I let people stay in my life far longer than they should have, hoping they'd change, hoping things would get better, but they never did. And the longer I held on, the more I suffered. One day, I decided I was done. I stopped returning calls from people who only reached out when they needed something. I stopped making plans with people who never made an effort. I stopped keeping ties with those who disrespected me, even if they had been in my life for years. And the moment I did, something incredible happened. I felt free. Cutting people off isn't about anger or revenge. It's about protecting your peace. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away from relationships that drain you. It's about recognizing that not everyone is meant to be part of your future. At 80, I've learned that your life is yours to protect. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time, energy, or emotions. If someone isn't treating you right, you have every right to let them go, without explanation, without guilt. And if you're worried about what people will think, don't be. The right people will understand, and the wrong people never mattered anyway. Cutting people off isn't an act of cruelty, it's an act of self-respect, and the sooner you do it, the happier you'll be.